Hello, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Lucy. I am 42 years of age and I live here in Colombia, in Medellin. And this is my channel dedicated to all things perimenopause. And whilst I'm a certified menopause coaching specialist, I actually have been trying all of these protocols since I was in my mid-30s when I first started experiencing night sweats. And actually today I am going to talk specifically about things you can do, 12 things with one bonus thing that you can do to really help improve your sleep during perimenopause and then obviously into menopause. The good news is that when I was 35 and I was having these night sweats and they were pretty much ruining every night of sleep, I don't experience that anymore. And like I said, I'm 42. But the bad news is that it requires a lot of consistency. And I think that's something that we don't really talk about. Aside from the tools and techniques that I'm going to give you today, the most important thing is to bear in mind that just doing this 2 or 3 days a week or for like 2 to 3 weeks is probably not actually going to show you the benefits. You're going to have to go into the mindset that this is for the rest of your life. And I know that that sounds really scary and really big, but consistency, especially in perimenopause with the things that we need to do in order to look after ourselves, is essentially like the most important thing. And I cannot stress that enough. And if you've seen any of my other videos, I talk about how I really do believe that sleep is foundational. And this is where I really started when I was back in my mid-30s with these awful night sweats, which was like kind of destroying my sleep. And then the cascading effect of everything from there on in was just horrific. Good news is I am a living example that you can resolve these sleep issues. The bad news is that it does require you to be committed for probably the remaining years of your life. But these are also really, really good rules for just generally leading a really good, fit, healthy life into your perimenopause, menopause, and then beyond. I'll start off talking a little bit about the actual causes and some of the symptoms that you might experience. As I mentioned, for me, my issue was night sweats. I would wake up in the middle of the night, absolutely drenched in sweat. The bed sheets were soaked through. I couldn't tell if I was like hot or cold, but it was just horrific. I would put on pajamas, I would lay on a towel, and then of course I would be awake. For me, that was my experience, which was driving me crazy. A lot of other women report kind of the 3 a.m. wake up, and I do still wake up in the night, but generally I find it's not too difficult to get back to sleep. Other things that people experience is not actually being able to fall asleep. Perhaps you have a lot on your mind, which is then exacerbated by obviously hormonal shifts. These are some of the common things that actually can develop: insomnia, sleep apnea, not being able to get to sleep, not being able to stay asleep, the night sweats. They're all connected and essentially they all mess up our good night's sleep. And then obviously the next day we end up feeling horrific, tired, fuzzy. It doesn't help the brain fog, all of those kind of things. These are some of the symptoms that you're experiencing. Let me help you understand what's going on in your body and the things that you can do in order to improve your night's sleep. Let's jump in. When it actually comes to the reasons as to why we experience such bad sleep during perimenopause, there are essentially kind of 4 hormonal factors and then 2 things that we do just as part of life, which can also exacerbate sleep issues. Obviously, the first thing is we all know about estrogen. Estrogen is fluctuating, and as estrogen drops, estrogen just has so many effects on all of our other systems. It means that we then have less serotonin and melatonin, which means that it can be harder for us to fall asleep. That's kind of one of the very basic reasons. It's just like this constant fluctuation in estrogen. And one of the things that I found personally is that then when you start to have problems and then you're feeling like shit, basically it becomes a bit of a spiral where actually you're then getting a lot less beneficial sleep, and that then messes with the hormones even further. Another issue is that actually your progesterone is also dropping, and progesterone has a really calming effect on the body. So as that drops, we tend to feel like more in this state of anxiety. And it's actually the progesterone, for example, which is the thing that causes my wonderful friend PMT and makes me feel very ragey and angry. Progesterone shifting is then what's making you feel anxious and is also like making us feel very restless. Also cortisol. I'm sure you've heard people talk about cortisol and how we need to manage that more proactively when we're on our perimenopause. It's actually the cortisol dysregulation that is responsible for the 3 a.m. wake ups or the 4 a.m. or whenever it is. And basically it's like, we'll talk a bit more about what you can do, but managing your cortisol is also absolutely critical as we go into perimenopause. And then also we have, and that's what I was experiencing, is as estrogen is fluctuating, we then have these thermoregulation issues. And that's where, for example, I was being woken up in the middle of the night with these horrific night sweats. Those are kind of the 4 areas where our hormones, so estrogen, progesterone, cholesterol, and then the body temperature part, all very connected to those fundamental shifts in estrogen, but really interfering with the quality of our night's sleep. And then 2 of the lifestyle factors, which is not going to be a surprise, is alcohol. And whilst maybe alcohol helps you to fall asleep, actually, when you get to sleep, it actually really affects the quality of your sleep. So I am a Garmin user. I have spoken in one of my other videos about the importance of tracking, and I track my sleep like a motherfucker. And I know that when I drink alcohol, even if maybe I fall asleep as soon as my head hits the pillow, actually the quality of my sleep drastically reduces, sometimes by up to at least 50%, whereas I might get a sleep score of 85, which is a pretty average sleep score for me. If I've been drinking alcohol, that will plummet to sometimes below 50, sometimes below 40, depending on how many drinks I've had. That and sugar. Now, last night I ate a whole bag of chocolate before I went to bed, and actually I did not have like the greatest night's sleep. Alcohol and sugar are not our friends before we go to bed. If you're gonna drink and if you're gonna eat sugar, that's a quick and easy thing. Is definitely not before bedtime. And probably my suggestion would be to stop those things around 4 or 5 o'clock. Anyway, we're getting into the tips and I'm getting ahead of myself. The last thing is your lifestyle over the course of the last however many years, let's say in your 20s and your 30s, maybe into your 40s. Basically, if you have been burning the candle at both ends, a bit of a party animal, not looking after yourself, all of this stuff kind of catches up with us. I am definitely guilty of not looking after myself in my 20s, but when I got to my 30s, basically it was like playing catch up on all of that stuff, and it was a rude awakening to say the least, especially with the night sweats. But hopefully that gives you a sense of some of the actual reasons as to why sleep is so affected during perimenopause and menopause. And now I'm going to talk about the things that we can do to actually improve the quality of our sleep. And there are 12 things and one bonus thing at the end, which will probably divide opinion, but certainly it's something that works for me. Let's jump into the suggested tips. First of all, just want to go back to what I said before about consistency being absolutely critical. These things basically need to be built into your life going forward for the rest of your life. And I know that that sounds really big and really scary, but honestly, that is the best chance that you have to being able to resolve these sleep issues. The first thing is, and I have said this many, many times in my other videos, is strength training. And really, you should be strength training at least twice a week. My recommendation would be to actually get that closer to 3 or 4 times a week. And really, like the physical changes that you will have, actually strength training is amazing for managing cortisol. I actually found on the days that I trained, the days that I lifted weights, they were the days that I actually slept better. And again, tracking my Garmin, I could start to see the correlation. And I think I said in one of my other videos that if you're not resistance training, strength training, whatever you want to call it, with weights, heavy weights, you are leaving so much on the table when it comes to supporting your perimenopause future self and your menopause future self. Please, 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 if you take one thing from this video, lift weights. lecture over. The other thing, which is also super important, and this again balances insulin and cortisol, stabilizing blood sugar and mood, is making sure that you're eating enough protein. Now, I probably start to sound like a bit of a robot because I'm saying all of these things in all of these videos, but really this is just how it works. We have to take a holistic approach to our health. If you are struggling to sleep, please lift those weights. Please also make sure that you're having at least 30 grams of protein with every meal. And now that will stabilize your blood sugar. Within half an hour of waking up, I know a lot of women don't feel like eating, but now I've like trained my body into that habit. 30 grams of protein with breakfast, and then wait to have any coffee until 60 to 90 minutes after waking. And that will really help to stabilize your insulin and cortisol throughout the whole day. Lifting weights, number one. Number two, making sure that you've got a lot of protein in your diet. 30 grams ideally at each meal time. And I aim for 2 times 2 of my weight in terms of protein, which is probably way more than a doctor is likely to tell you. They would probably say 1.2 to 1.6. I'm saying 2. For me, it works really, really well. But if you're already like not having, let's say you're having 60 grams of protein a day, maybe even just adding in a protein shake, which will get you another 30 grams, that could really just make such a big difference. Small steps, increase your protein, but maybe just start by adding in a protein shake or eating an extra chicken breast. I don't know, whatever you prefer, but making sure that that protein is high. The third thing that you can physically do is also making sure that you're staying hydrated. And I am a big water drinker. In fact, I have my Stanley. For those of you who know me, my Stanley comes with me absolutely everywhere. My emotional support cup. But essentially, if you're staying hydrated, if you're having things like the night sweats, it's just really important that you're going to keep all of your systems well lubricated. And for me, I consider like water to be probably one of the most fundamental inputs to my body, to making sure that I'm staying fit and healthy. If you're dehydrated, that is going to worsen any night sweats or hot flushes that you're having. So regulating the hormones, focus first on making sure that you're lifting weights, then make sure that you're getting enough protein and making sure that you're super hydrated. And a lot of people ask me, how is your skin so good? And I'm sure that that is basically because I am hydrated from the inside out. Okay, those are the first 3 tips from me. The second then kind of comes more to the environment that you're actually sleeping in. And for women, especially when we are going through our periods, like it's really important that we keep the room at like a good temperature. So like maybe 18 to 20 degrees. It's really important that we keep our bodies, as we sleep, our body temperature should be lowered. So making sure that the bedroom is not overly hot. I know sometimes that can be a challenge, but like having a fan. I also really like a fan because I'm a big believer in white noise. I think when I started like having my sleep issues, I became incredibly sensitive to all noise. In fact, I think perimenopause just made me sensitive to noise, full stop. So that basically meant that if I heard even like a person sneezing outside on the road, like that would probably wake me up. So having some white noise on in the background can also be a really, really helpful way of just creating the right environment for you to be able to get sleep. So a cool environment, possibly with some white noise and a fan, that might really help you. Keeping kind of like that ambient noise around you really consistent so that if there are little noises outside, it doesn't wake you up. And then back to the point that I was making about the lifestyle changes, it's really, really important that you understand alcohol is not going to help you to sleep. And as I said, if you think that that is actually, that it helps you to fall asleep or it helps you relax and unwind, it kind of does. But then when you're actually asleep, that's actually when, you know, the quality of your sleep will be a lot poorer. So you actually wake up feeling not great. And to be quite honest, like alcohol and perimenopause, they do not mix. So I really recommend that you skip the alcohol, you skip the dessert, especially if it's getting anywhere near to like 6 p.m., 7 p.m. But those things will make a really, really big difference. So would definitely ask yourself, the lifestyle choices that you're making, are they helping you sleep or are they hindering your sleep? So those are another two things that you can do in order to keep the body cool, keep the body in the best possible conditions before you go to sleep. So the next big thing is all around circadian rhythms. Now, for those of you who have been following me for a while, you will know that I'm a big fan of Andrew Huberman. And it was actually when I started watching Andrew Huberman's podcast, I started trying a ton of these different protocols to help. And I do really believe that managing your circadian rhythm is really important. And actually, as someone who travels a lot, I have noticed that the more that I can stick to a sleep schedule, the better it actually is for my body and for my mind. So one of the things that I do try and do every morning is get some sunlight into my eyes, again, within the first 30 minutes of waking up. So I wake up, I meditate for 20 minutes, and then I go outside. And basically, I absorb the sunlight into my eyes, and this then really helps with the circadian rhythm. Why this is important is it goes back to the cortisol that we were talking about before. So when I sort of started out on this whole journey, I came across Andrew Huberman, who changed my life. Now, Andrew Huberman also recommends like managing your circadian rhythm, irrespective of whether you're a perimenopausal woman or not. But what he recommends and what the science says is that if you get sunlight directly into your eyes within the first 30 minutes of waking up, that really just helps to like set you on the course for the rest of the day and to manage your circadian rhythm. So if you are struggling with your sleep, especially when it comes to falling asleep, one of the best things that you could be doing is making sure that when you wake up that you're getting some sunlight into your eyes. So that's the first thing that you can do. Then the second thing, which nobody likes to hear and nobody likes to do, is to actually have a consistent waking up and going to sleep time. And that means at the weekends as well. So I tend to wake up around 6 and I tend to go to bed around 9 or 10. I do like to get more than 8 hours sleep if at all possible. I find that it really helps with my recovery, and obviously it just helps with how I feel throughout the day. So my recommendation is wake up, get that sunlight in your eyes early. It will help you for the rest of the day. I know that's kind of difficult if you're living somewhere in the Northern Hemisphere and you have very long winters. There is unfortunately no solution directly for that. You could buy like one of those red light kind of red light therapy things, which are like kind of a light, which I have also heard are really helpful. But first two things, circadian rhythm, getting that sunlight within the first 30 minutes of waking up, and then having very structured waking up and going to sleep times. Now, I know at the weekend, maybe you feel like you want to go out and you want to party, but just be warned that actually consistency when it comes to sleep and awake times is also really important. So then the last recommendation that I have for you when it comes to kind of sleep hygiene is actually to make sure that you have no stimulation really an hour before you go to bed. And when I say stimulation, I mean, a lot of people talk about not being on your phones, like avoiding screens, all of that kind of thing. For me, I would go even one step further, which is like I have found that if I go out and I come back and I'm in bed for my normal time, but I've like been stimulated, like whether I've been talking to friends or like being out and about, like I actually find I need 2 hours before falling asleep in order to get into a wind down mode. So if your bedtime is at 10, maybe like 9 o'clock, making sure that you're at home, making sure that you're in bed, the room is cool and dark, you maybe got your white noise. All of these things will really help and make sure that you're creating the right environment to help you sleep as well. And like I said, I really try and make sure that there's like no activities 2 hours before I go to bed. So at 8 o'clock, I put my phone onto flight mode and that's it. And all of my friends know that they will not hear from me until probably 8 o'clock the next day. So those very simple, straightforward things that we can do, which should help us manage our circadian rhythm. Okay, so the next thing that I'm going to talk about is the things that we can do for nervous system regulation. And I think this was something that I've really suffered and struggled with over the years, is my nervous system and that kind of that sense of anxiety. And I definitely think it had a lot to do with kind of 3 a.m. wake up calls. It's actually managing that nervous system regulation. And so I have heard that, and I have heard very good things actually from magnesium glycinate and also theanine, L-theanine from Stacey Sims, and also taurine can be really good for sleep. Adaptogens just in general can be very good for the nervous system. So there are people that have like really reported a lot of improvement through upping their magnesium supplements. As I said, that would be magnesium glycinate. There are various different types. L-theanine is another thing that Stacey Sims recommends, and taurine. Any adaptogens basically can really help with nervous system regulation and might help that 3 a.m. wake up. The other thing, and this again, big fan of Andrew Huberman and his recommendations, is non-sleep deep rest. So something like yoga nidra. And actually Andrew does have various podcasts and things on YouTube to help with the NSDR, so the non-sleep deep rest, and just in general breath work. Now, these just really help by calming the nervous system. And sometimes when I can't sleep or can't get to sleep, really just focusing on the NSDR. So for example, the 4-7-8 breath is a really good one. So in for 4, hold for 7, and then out for 8. That can really help just like calm the nervous system. I have also heard somewhere that if you do the 4-7-8 breath and you put your tongue on the roof of your mouth and you breathe out really hard through your mouth on the 8, apparently that's actually a bit of a sleep hack. So I haven't tried it, but if anyone's tried it and it works for you, please leave a comment down below. So that's been 10 tips so far. So then the final 2 is actually all about supporting the gut health. And clearly, like, we have a lot of estrogen, like getting trapped in places like in the liver, and we want the liver to be clearing out that estrogen. So one way that we can do that is by eating cruciferous vegetables and getting plenty of fiber. So whilst I might bang on about protein, the other thing that I am very militant about is all of the vegetables that I eat in my diet. Now, I actually aim for about 40 different types of plant-based foods in my diet on a weekly basis. So that, for example, could look like broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, peppers, lettuce. Sorry, the reason why I'm blanking is because I keep thinking of these words in Spanish. Pepino, which is cucumber, bananas, berries, all of those things. Like basically, the more fiber that you're eating, the better your system works. Now, I hope this is not too much information, but I eat a lot of fiber. So I do at least 2 poos a day, maybe sometimes even 3. And that's just like kind of really good metabolism, making sure that your liver is clearing out any of those excess hormones that might be messing with your sleep. So making sure that you're eating a high fiber diet, in particular those cruciferous veg, so like broccoli and cauliflower. Personally, I hate broccoli, so I prefer cauliflower. They will really help when it comes to flushing out and balancing or managing those hormones in your blood. And then the last one, again, is for gut health, and that's all to do with like probiotics. So making sure that you are eating plenty of things like kefir or sauerkraut. The way that I think about my stomach and the way that I think about my diet, and maybe this will be helpful for you, is to think about it as like a massive internal compost heap. So I try and eat as many things, as many plants, and as many healthy whole foods. I'm imagining like creating this in a compost heap. And I like to imagine that it's like a rainbow compost heap. So I'm eating red and orange and yellow and green and not so many blue foods. But essentially, eating a rainbow creates that inner rainbow. And that's making sure that I get micronutrients. It's making sure that I am like having a really good metabolism. So again, I think that also really helps. It also helps the gut-brain axis. So like if you have a healthy gut, it's making the signals to the brain better as well, which is then helping to manage those hormonal fluctuations. So I'm just going to do a quick recap of all of the 12 things that I have covered so far. So number 1, lift weights. Number 2, eating protein. Number 3, staying hydrated. Number 4, keeping the room and your bed and your sleeping conditions at a nice 18 to 20 degrees. Number 5, no wine, no sugar. If you want to get a decent night's sleep, they would say after 7. I would probably say after 5. Number 6, morning sunlight within 30 minutes of waking up. Number 7, consistent sleep and wake times. Number 8, no stimulation an hour before bed, maybe 2 hours if you really want to give yourself the best possible chance of a good night's sleep. Number 9, magnesium glycinate and taurine, possibly L-theanine. Number 10, NSDR, so non-sleep deep rest, including things like yoga nidra. And then number 11, the cruciferous vegetables, and making sure that you're getting enough fiber in your diet. And then number 12 was probiotics and fermented foods. So that brings me on to number 13. And like I said, this is probably going to divide opinion. And if you watch Andrew Huberman, you probably have been put off this one. But I am actually quite a big fan of using marijuana to help me sleep. Whether that's in gummies, whether that's smoking a very small amount, whether that is also having like oils, something like that. For me, it really helps. Maybe it's psychosomatic, I'm not sure, but it really does help me. If I want to have a good night's sleep and I've been struggling, then that is something that I do use. I want to be very clear that this is not legal in all countries. It is decriminalized here in Colombia. I can definitely talk a lot more about my views on marijuana at some point in the future, but that's not what I'm here to do today. So if it's an option open to you legally in your country, then perhaps that could also be something, especially if you're someone who is looking to give up alcohol. For me, alcohol is basically the biggest problem in perimenopause. It creates a lot of inflammation in my body. It means that I sleep like absolute turd. So I would much prefer to get my kicks, if I so need them, from using a little bit of marijuana. But like I said, that really depends on what country you're in and what the legalities of that are. So that is my list of 12 things to do in order to help you sleep with my bonus number 13. Thank you so much for listening. If you have any other protocols or tips that you would like to share, please leave a comment. If you would like me to do a video on something else when it comes to perimenopause, please also leave a comment. I am really grateful to everybody that shows up and listens and gets something out of this. So please help me to help you. And if this was helpful, please like, please subscribe, and please share with your friends. So thank you very much. I have been Lucy. It's been great to have you here, and I hope this has been useful. I will see you in another video at some point soon. So take care, and I hope you get a good night's sleep. Bye.